is having an identity crisis. What do you think of when you hear about a first-person shooter? Call of Duty, right? Well, when you envision it, what do you see? I bet for a fact most of you were envisioning boots on the ground soldiers running with normal-looking weapons. You didn't think of Nicki Minaj, you didn't think of Attack on Titan, and you didn't think of jetpacks. This has been the problem with Call of Duty for the longest time. It doesn't know what it wants to be. It tries too hard to follow trends of the time rather than making its own ideas. And when there are no current trends, it just goes back to its roots of what it's always been, with an arcade shooter with little to no innovation. Gone are the days where the game actually tries to give players unique experiences. Let's take a look at the identity crisis that Call of Duty has faced over the last decade. The prime years of Call of Duty are pretty easily definable. When asking older players what they say the peak of Call of Duty is, most would say 2007 to 2012. This starts with Call of Duty 4 Modern Warfare and ends at Call of Duty Ghosts. While the numbers would say otherwise, fans would argue this is where Call of Duty was at its peak, which is honestly pretty valid. This was when Call of Duty felt the most mainstream. You couldn't go anywhere without hearing people praise Call of Duty, and it was breaking gaming records left and right. Developers and AAA companies were also trying to make their own FPS games as competition, since Activision had been so innovative in an area of gaming that had been experiencing a slow and agonizing death. Call of Duty was arguably on top and thriving in a way that was never expected. During Black Ops 2, however, fans did start to get antsy. Year after year, the games being delivered were incredible experiences, Black Ops 2 included. But around this time, fans started to ask Activision for more. The recipe, while fun, for Call of Duty games was beginning to get stale. So Activision was gonna have to try to do something new, which they really didn't know how to do. This is evident at the start of Call of Duty's creative downfall, and this begins with Call of Duty Ghosts. Ghosts was a bit bland. It tried to do a lot differently than previous games with weapons and perks, but it just didn't work. Its main flaw in its identity was its desire to copy the success of its competitor Battlefield. The devs try to give us larger maps and maps with levolution, which is where the maps or levels in-game change as the players interact with them. So in layman's terms, destructive environments. Ghost stole this idea and executed it in a gimmicky fashion that just felt lazy. The levolution was minor, like a log being able to be knocked down, and at its worst was fake, like the map freefall, which just progressively broke down as players continued in their matches, or no influence from the gunfights happening on it. It was a rough year for Call of Duty fans, as the game was trying to execute a million ideas, which led a majority of them to feel half-baked and silly. Fans hoped that the next entry would be substantially better, but in reality, the domino effect of Call of Duty's identity crisis was just beginning. 2014 proved somewhat successful for Sledgehammer Games in the innovation department, as they took the Call of Duty franchise to a place it'd never really gone, the high-tech future. It explored the near future before with Black Ops 2, but Advanced Warfare took place in 2054, the furthest into the future that the franchise had ever gone at that time. It also brought in a new movement system, laser guns, and crazy abilities, all very unique takes for a franchise that hadn't shaken up things very much in the recent years. Then, that same year, Titanfall came out from EA. Titanfall was a robot FPS game with stunning movement abilities that kept players hooked. At this time, no FPS game had ever enhanced movement in such a capacity, which made Titanfall an impressive feat considering it was a new IP. This made Activision worried. So what did they do? They fired back with Black Ops 3 and implemented their own version of Titanfall's movement with an improved slide from the last game and wall running. Also swimming too. But wall running was the biggest obvious addition stolen from Titanfall. Now the copying didn't end there. Black Ops 3 implemented specialists, which were honestly just a lazy way to replicate mechanics from the Destiny franchise. Once again, Call of Duty was taking ideas from other games, attempting to put its own twist on them to provide players with what they claimed the most innovative game they've ever made. Then, after Black Ops 3 years wrapped, it was Infinite Warfare's time to shine, or not so much. It was a rough year for Call of Duty fans, made even worse by the fact that once again, EA was competing with Activision. They released Battlefield 1, a Battlefield game taking place in World War I. It was clearly crafted to fight the futuristic fatigue of the gaming franchises at that time. Making matters worse, for Activision, it was actually a really good game, so its marketing actually led to the game almost beating Infinite Warfare's sales numbers. And it probably would have, if not for Modern Warfare Remastered being bundled of one of the most expensive versions of Infinite Warfare. Oh yeah, and specialists were back. They weren't done milking other games' concepts for their own game. But no matter what, Activision had to try and beat EA. They couldn't be concerned with allegations of stealing other games' ideas instead of trying to craft their own identity. So how did Activision decide to copy the success of Battlefield 1? They released Call of Duty World War II, a game fully built on advertising the return to boots on the ground gameplay and taking place during one of the world wars. Oh yeah, and they still managed to find a way to steal an idea from Destiny and implement it as an HQ for Call of Duty players were able to roam around and interact with multiple players. The idea was cool, but again, they were borrowing from other games and not creating their own identity. Yet, the worst blow to Call of Duty's identity was yet to still come. During World War II's run, PUBG and Fortnite made the Battle Royale genre soar. Everyone was playing Battle Royales, and the games that executed the genre well were making billions. Activision obviously wanted a piece of that BR pie, so they decided to force Treyarch to throw together Blackout, Call of Duty's first adventure into the BR genre. It was clearly rushed and put together the year before the launch, despite the 3-year dev cycle. The mode was fine, but it wasn't as successful due to it being locked behind a paywall, and once again, it was so clearly thrown in just for the money rather than genuine drive and passion to make a good game. And side note, this mode actually came at the expense of a campaign, as that mode was scrapped for the BR halfway into the development cycle. Yeah, Activision will do about anything for some money. Now, after Black Ops 4 came Modern Warfare 2019. For once, it felt as though the game had its own identity. It was trying things no Call of Duty had done before and innovating in many areas. It definitely took things from other FPS games and implemented them into the game, but significantly less than the previous entries. Yes, they added Warzone, but this time, the BR felt like it had passion behind it, and it was free to play. Call of Duty had seemed to finally get its footing again. It made a ton of money. So Activision decided, let's make every entry like this one. That's where the current state of Call of Duty is. Each entry since 2019 has just felt like a reskinned Modern Warfare 2019. Activision wants to replicate their success during the pandemic, which is nearly impossible. As the years went on, they also started dipping their toes into collaborations and item shop bundles. These work in Fortnite, but I don't really think they work in Call of Duty. Not only because they clashed with the serious, grounded military experience the game has been trying to establish, but also because the game is a first-person shooter. If you buy Snoop Dogg, you don't even see the skin. Only other people see it. Plus, the shop bundles are additional costs on top of the $70 price tag of the base game. It's clear Call of Duty doesn't know what it wants to be. It's done being original. But there is hope now. Microsoft has bought Activision. This means maybe for once the devs will actually get more of a say in the game, making for a better working environment for workers and a better gaming experience for Call of Duty players. So the question is, Do you think Call of Duty's having an identity crisis? Let me know in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.